that's not uncommon. So that's not uncommon.
Clean hands are better than cloth gloves. What do you have, inkjet paper? It's asking for it.
Only those times. Okay, thank you.
Candy ribbon edge.
See where yours is, and that way you'll have an educated decision.
I brought two ride-on toys made by Mark's company in the 30s. They've been in the house I'm living in since probably new. My mother remembers playing on them when she was a child, and me and my sisters and brothers and cousins all rode on them and played on them when we were little. My children, all my nephews, have ridden on these and played with these. I brought them to learn a little bit more about them and what the value of them is, because they're going to stay in my house until I die, and my son will have to decide what he's going to do with them when he's.
Did your appraiser put a value on them?
He did.
What was that?
He said to insure them for $1,000 at least.
Wow. For
the pair.
For the pair. Mm-hmm.
And he has said that the baggage car, he has never seen one of them yet. He said this is the first one he's seen.
I brought an invitation to the Andy Warhol 1964 exhibit of flowers. This one hasn't been folded, and they think it's worth about $200 to $300. I paid 75 cents at a garage sale.
And what I brought in is a collection of kimonos that my father brought back in, I'd say, 1945. So they are in pretty poor condition. And what'd she say?
About $300.
About $300 in value. And now I need to figure out how to save them.
Okay, so we brought in a violin that is a reproduction of the Stradivarius. And they said that the year is probably around the 1920s. And so we learned that the case and the bows are actually more valuable than the violin itself. What we do know about the violin is it belonged to my grandmother, and she played it in concerts. And so she traveled around and played the violin there. So,
Did they put any sort of value on it?
Maybe around $100 on the violin itself, but like $150 per bow, approximately. And so, yeah.
So this is a Happy Buddha that has been in my family for as long as I can remember. My father brought it back from the war. He brought it back from Japan. He was in both World War II and the Korean conflict. So it's been a part of my family. It's kind of had a revered place in our china cabinet, but we never really knew much about it and really hadn't talked to my dad about it, and he's passed away now, but so I was just curious to know what it was. So they were able to tell us that it was a cast ceramic piece that is hand painted, not worth a lot of money. It's priceless to us, but they were able to tell us that they really were meant for service members to bring back to their families, and they wanted to send something happy home with the service members. So it's worth about $175.
My grandmother, who was born in 1873, made this quilt for her wedding dowry, her hope chest, before 1890, because she was married in 1890, and her mother made one just like it at the same time. But it's all fancy fabrics, satins and silks and velvets, and very heavily embroidered and lined with red satin on the back. And the appraisers thought it was the most beautiful quilt they'd seen, and we should insure it for at least $10,000.
When I came in, I knew nothing about this painting and didn't think it was worth anything. It's been in my house. It actually belongs to my daughter. Her godfather gave it to her, and so it's just been sitting in my house all these years, for about 40 years.
About 40 years. So what did you find out about it?
I found out that it's a famous Mexican artist, and it's appraised for $800 to $1,200. So now my daughter has to buy me dinner.
It's a very old music box. It does play beautiful music, and it's been in our family for probably 75 years. And before that, I knew the lady that had it. She was a dear friend, and so it's very meaningful to our family. We didn't get a really high estimate on its value, but that's okay. We're going to keep it, and because we love it.
I've got a biography of the life of General Grant by William Ralston. It was published in 1865, and it's in really good condition except for a little bit of destruction on the binding here, but the book was given to me by my neighbor when we lived in Arizona. He was really enthralled with all the Civil War, and he had a lot of Civil War books. He was moving, and I did a lot of work, and I helped him, and he asked me what he wanted to pay me, and I said, no, I won't take any pay. But he said, I've got some books. Are you interested in Civil War? And I said, well, yes. So he gave me this book along with some other ones, and this one's obviously my favorite.
Did you learn anything new about the book that you didn't already know today?
Well, I couldn't find it on the internet, but the appraiser found it on the different auction sites. It's not as valuable as I thought it'd be, but to me it's invaluable.
Okay, in 1960, late 60, early 61, there was a car wreck in Ellsworth County, and a girl survived, was taken to the hospital. Her dad came out to visit her on numerous occasions. She was in the hospital for months, and while he was in town, he stopped at the local bank where my dad worked and cashed a check, and my dad invited him for dinner one night and all. And when he went back to New York, he was a scout for the Yankees, went down in the locker room and had everybody in the locker room that was there sign the baseball and brought it back to us, which was before the pennant and all that, so early 60. So the signatures that are on there go from Ed Ford, he signed it Ed, not Whitey, Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle, Bob Turley, Johnny Blanchard, Elston Howard, Louis Arroyo. There's like 26, 27 names I can identify, and 6 I'm not sure of yet.
Do you have any idea of the rarity of this? Did they tell you anything about that?
It's hard to tell because of the signatures that are on here compared to other team signed baseballs as to who's there. There are the big 5 that are on here with Mantle and Maris and those guys. They're all on there. So with that in mind, he said that it was probably worth Some of them are worth up to $10,000. He said because my dad decided to help try to preserve this and varnished it, it's probably only worth between $2,000 and maybe $4,000. Maybe more, depends on all the signatures as you can identify and stuff.
So I got this from a farm out by Colby, Kansas. It had been vacant for 40 some years and brought it in today, and it's worth $250. And that's because it has the American League Championship, all the players' names that were playing that year, and it's from 1965. But it was just out at the farmhouse. Nobody had been out there in 40 some years, and I went this summer and found all kind of hidden treasures. I brought several other banners, and they were worth from $10 to $30, but this one was the jackpot.
Well, it's a picture of a bunch of recruits at the end of World War I, and it's a machine gun unit trained here in Kansas, basic training, and it was right at the end of the war. And in this picture is my husband's grandfather. Him and his wife lived on the farm up at Emporia, Kansas, and these guys, most of them caught the Spanish flu and actually probably never saw combat. Now that was the story that we heard about Granddad. So when we discovered this picture, all rolled up in a plastic bag full of styrofoam balls with some sequins and Christmas ribbon, we thought it was the instructions on how to make Christmas ornaments. Little did we know when we started to unroll the picture that it was a picture, not instructions. So we had to have a special process to get the rotogravure actually stretched out so that we could have it mounted and framed. We found out then that my father-in-law and his siblings knew nothing about this picture. And we bought it when they auctioned off the farm for 50 cents in a box of sewing supplies. And I hate to think of what might have happened to this picture had it been just tossed out in the trash. So we were very, very fortunate to discover this. We're considering giving it to the World War I Museum, perhaps in Kansas City, if they'd like to have it someday.